that we're live, like right now, since we are live?
It's actually doing it right now. We have that set up in Streamlabs.
Okay, good. So less I have to think about.
Exactly. That's kind of the idea, is to make this a little bit easier. My ad's running now, so we are live. But give it a few minutes.
Yeah,
Let everybody get in.
Well, I'm sure since everything else seemed to have worked, that something else will go awry. All right, well, somebody can hear me. Who is that, Chuck?
That must be that.
Hopefully that's Chuck. So,
There it is back.
do we have video? I guess I could look and see if we have video. We do.
No, I'm already lagging so bad that it's sort of pointless for me to try to even keep track of it.
Oh, you mean seeing it? Well, I can see you.
Okay, so we're running, moving.
Excellent. We're going to give it a few minutes and let people wander in. I don't think... Booyah. Hello,
Hey.
Talon? Talion?
I'm not sure how he says it either.
Talion. We're going to go with Talion.
Fine. Italian? I think you.
That's been one of the most entertaining things on Kickstarter, is everybody's names and trying to, hook names up with actual people and emails and all the fun stuff.
With them being able to change it all the time, it's very hard a lot of times to keep track of all that.
Yeah. Hey, Melkor, how's it going? Googleplex, how you doing? Yeah, it's entertaining. And then you've got names for message boards, and they did kill that on Facebook, because they killed the Troll Lord.
Yeah.
That had been my Facebook page. I remember way back when Facebook first started, it'd probably been in a year or something, and Peter Bradley was, he was telling me, hey man, you gotta get on this Facebook, this is a new way to communicate. And I was like, I'm not doing that, that's crazy. And then probably about 6 months later, he finally talked me into it, so I set up Troll Lord. I didn't want to put my name on there, so I put Troll Lord. And when they shut that down, about 3 years ago?
Yeah, at least.
Something like that. They said no more anonymity. I can't say that word.
Anonymity.
That one. It seems like a silly word with a whole lot of consonants and vowels. Too much.
I don't think this would show up on the screen, but it's really wild, Steve. You've seen this. But, the river's been flooding. And where the creek meets the river is right where we live. And the creek is brown, and the river is green. So it has this very sharp line that runs right down.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool to see.
I've always liked that spot where the creek runs into the river. It's a nice spot.
It's funny, you can have one leg where in the summertime where it's 90 degrees, and another leg, just stretch legs a little bit, and it can be in the 55 degree, because the Spring River's, it's a spring fed, so it's always going to be at like 55 to 60.
That river's cold.
It is cold. It is always cold. And about in wintertime, well, I told you Bob and I went fishing, and we turned over, didn't I?
Oh, no.
The river was up, and so we were going to go fishing when he came to visit, and we tried going up the falls, and we thought we could just push through them, but we got turned a little bit sideways, went, ass over tea kettle, and lost a rod, and my hat, and two other things.
How far were you from the house?
We were up 2 falls.
Oh, good grief.
We weren't to the islands, but basically the canoe was underwater, so we had to grab hold of it and move it off to the side and try to find a place where we could get stand and get most of the water out, and then managed to save the paddles. Otherwise, I don't know what we were just floated down until we got to the cabin and then jumped out. But that was the end of my fishing for that weekend.
I'll bet. It's funny too, because when you're gaming, you know, and you're playing characters and you're adventuring overland, stuff like that. If you role play that out, it can be really, really cool. And you lived it. I mean, so you fall in the water, and the first thing you realize is your canoe submerged. Then you realize that your clothes are, 20 pounds heavier, 30 pounds heavier, something like that. All your gear's wet. Everything's filled. I mean, a sword scabbard would be filled with water. I mean, just water everywhere.
Yeah, well, and the funny thing is, Bob and I had gotten into the canoe, and he decided he wanted to come back for a hat. And I realized we didn't have our life jackets. And I think there's a law that you have to have a life jacket. At least there is a name in the canoe.
Yes, there is.
And I just happened to come back up and grab them. Otherwise, it could have been even worse. We could have very least just floated down. But you know, the river, when it's just up maybe 2 to 3 feet like it is now, it's really fast.
Yeah.
Surprisingly hard to actually paddle or to swim in. But I'll try to take a picture of that later so you can see it.
Yeah, post it. That'd be kind of cool. That's those are those. You know, that's what we've already kind of laid out next week's or 2 weeks from now. GM's Tricks of the Trade, but I think I'll do one on the environmental impact, because stuff like that could be really, really cool. And once you've lived through it, you know, you can kind of it's easier to run it, but then maybe you could throw in some stuff what it's like, because that stuff can impact everything and can be really challenging. Lots of attribute checks as you're tumbling and whatnot, and rivers are dangerous.
Yes, they are. They are. They had that sinkhole here, you know.
That's right.
Remember that?
That poor fellow drowned. Yeah, I remember when I lived up in Kansas, we lived on the Missouri, and it's got, I can't remember what they call them, but all kinds of underwater, where you just get sucked down, really, because it's so deep. And there's no real kind of, you don't know where they are. They just pop up, move on, and blah, blah, blah.
Undertow.
Yeah. It eats you up.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you think we've rambled on enough? You think we got enough people here yet?
I think so. We have introduced the stream. If I can get this wire out of my way. So today's GM's Tricks. This thing's driving me crazy. Today's GM's Tricks of the Trade, which went out this morning a little earlier than we did last week, so hopefully people have had a little bit of chance to digest the thing. I talked about a subject that actually impacts my game quite a bit. I have a lot of, as soon as characters start getting to the 3rd and 4th and 5th level, and because we play one giant campaign arc, we've been playing the same game since 07 or 06, somewhere around there. I think everybody's rotated through one character, died, and started another one, so it's been a game that's been running quite a while. And as soon as they hit 3rd, 4th, and 5th level, around in that area, they began having interactions with the lords of Kaomar, nobles to the north. And this isn't anything new to my game. I've always kind of run games that have at some point impact with the local lords, the local powers, what have you. And I can't count the number of times that the game has gone awry because someone mouthed off to their lord, or didn't bow, or refused this, or what have you. And it the hilarity and not hilarity ensues after that, is the characters are executed or, you know, banished or what have you, and fun evaporates. And it took me a while, I think, to kind of realize what was going on and why it was so difficult for people to kind of adjust into that. And that kind of led into this week's GM's Tricks of the Trades. We did a little bit of it last week in our Thursday night game, and I thought this might be something interesting to lay out kind of how I handle softening everything up so that most of us who grew up in the West aren't used to it. So we can kind of soften the whole thing up so you can play nobles without it wrecking your game or causing hours of argument and upset. So the first thing that I do, and I do this very frequently, let me move this. I don't know what it's distracting me. I do this very frequently. Same game, same players, new game, new players, doesn't matter. I'll soften the playing field. I'll basically, before any kind of encounter with a noble is going to happen, I will do a very short and sweet lecture where I talk about how all of us in the West... Oh, I didn't get a new chair yet. I was supposed to have a new chair. I forgot all about it. How those of us in the West, we've grown up in representative republics. states that you actually have rights, that you're, when you're born as a citizen, you have a certain set of rights that go with being a citizen of that state, and property rights are ensured, and all kinds of things like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all these things. And we're used to it, and freedom of speech being a huge thing, we're very, very used to it, and because we're so inundated with freedom, and this is from Moscow all the way to Tokyo, really. I mean, and even into parts of China and elsewhere. I mean, there's individual freedoms are everywhere. So we're just not accustomed to bowing or responding to authority, in a kind of, I shouldn't say respectful, because you're still respectful to police officers and what have you, but we just don't kowtow to government. We just don't. And in certain parts of the United States and probably everywhere else, it goes kind of the opposite direction. Even the sheer idea that someone's going to tell you what to do elicits a response that, the borderline, the base of it's just pure anger, because you don't want to be told what to do. Once you leave home, you're tired of being told what to do, and you don't want the government doing it. So I kind of give this speech and let everybody know that this is where you come from, this is what you're used to. However, the environment that you're fixing to enter is not like that at all. Your character would actually have nothing really to relate to with freedom of speech and freedom of all of these kind of individual rights and whatnot. The only thing that they could relate to is a power structure built on feudalism, monarchy, what have you. So I tell my players to try to divorce themselves from what their kind of knee-jerk reaction to not wanting to bow to government or what have you. It doesn't ever have the effect that I want it to. I mean, it's almost impossible to kind of, yeah, exactly. Resistance is futile. Nice. It's almost impossible to divorce yourself from, deep-rooted culture and all of this business. But at least put that surface thought in the player's mind so that when they sit down, they know maybe they'll hesitate just a little bit before they react like they would normally in the situation when some lord comes up and says, bow before me or what have you. So that's the first thing I do, and that's kind of that was the first tip I covered. Again, I would do it, but just keep it light, keep it funny. Don't lecture, don't do anything like that. Just bring everybody into it and let them know. Now, the next thing, and this I very, very early on dropped, and if you look at the world of Erd, you'll notice this. I very early on dropped totalitarian governments, and this by this I mean the word escapes me. Where the king has total power. That drives me crazy.
Monarchy?
Yeah, well, monarchies it's a type of government, but
No,
it's not all. It's a monarchy, but really, like when you look at Europe, and let's look at France specifically, the monarchs didn't become totalitarian monarchs until about Louis the 14th, the Sun King. He's the one. He really kind of. It's not dictatorship. I'm going to say it. We're all going to. It's a type of monarchy. I probably wrote about it in the Tricks of the Trade, but. At any rate, so that the king of, I think it was King Louis the 14th, who actually managed to tremendously restrict the powers of the duchies and the counts, so that he pretty much was calling the shots. By Louis the 15th, it was a totalitarian monarchy completely, and by Louis the 16th, when of course it ended, it was the same thing. And Napoleon kind of had the same thing. Before that, the dukes and counts, they actually had a great deal of power that they could exercise against the kings, and there was periods of time when you had Aquitaine, the Duchy of Aquitaine, was more powerful than the Duke of Aquitaine would be more powerful than the King of France militarily. So I tried to get away from any kind of. Let's see. Yeah, I can't believe this is escaping me. It's literally it's what the Sun King was. It's how you define his. I guess I closed that tab out. How you define his monarchy. And Louis the 16th, there's a few of them. There's not very many monarchs in Western Europe. Now, it's a little bit different when you get out east. Certainly with like the Parthian Empire, the Roman Empire even. These guys had total power. All the power was vested in them. What I try to do when I'm setting up any kind of government that my characters are going to interact with, to get us back on track, what I try to do is use either a feudal system, which is very, very good, or a limited monarchy. A limited monarchy, of course, you're going to have, it doesn't necessarily have to be a feudal monarchy where you have all of these exchanges of goods and services. But the king doesn't have total power over everything. He can't just up and execute people. He can't, if a character comes in and mouths off to him, he's not going to be able to just say, have that guy executed. There's other powers in it, whether it's religious powers, other nobles, other warlords. There's other powers in the kingdom that are pulling things apart. And you can kind of look at the early English government for this under Alfred. He was actually trying to kind of coalesce power under him, but he still had the lords of his land, the earls of his land, had a great deal of power. So you could actually be a servant of an earl and then not beholden to the king, even though the earl served the king because of various obligations. So limited monarchy works very well because it takes your power away, softens the power of the ruling elite, the nobles, in the face of whatever the characters are going to bring to the table, meaning whatever insults or whatever they do that is going to react negatively when they meet the noble. Feudalism is my favorite. Feudalism is an extremely complicated form of government, but on its surface you can play it very simply. It's just basically land for obligations, services for land and this type of stuff. So you can actually water that down, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But I try to I steer away from any kind of totalitarian government and focus in on. Wait, I'm getting an error message. No, am I still live? Everything good?
Yes, I can see you, and I can hear you, but I'm hearing you through Skype. Now I have a delay, so.
Okay. All right. I just got this weird message across the thing here, so that's all right, good. All right. So feudalism is my favorite form of government because it really, as I mentioned earlier, you can have a duke that's more powerful than a king, a baron more powerful than a duke. Anything goes, really. I mean, if you have a knight in a feudal situation that has through a variety of services and accepted obligations, he can have more land, and he could field more knights than his lord does, which is really kind of cool. This allows the player characters to actually exercise power in the kingdom itself, or whatever type of entity that you're dealing with, and that in turn kind of empowers players to do it a little bit more correctly, because then they are going to have knights that are serving them, a wizard that serves them, priests that serve them. And when those priests are interacting, or those knights or whatever are interacting with a player character, they're going to show the same respect or follow the same traditions that the player character should be following when he deals with the king or the duke or baron or what have you. So feudalism is just it's an extremely complicated but can on the surface be easily used system of government. It's tailor-made really for role-playing games. I think I mentioned in the Tricks of the Trade, we discuss it in the Castle Keeper's Guide. So if you have that book, you can dive into it there. But if you really want a fantastic description of the complexity of feudalism and how it all works, Mark Bloch's Feudal Society, I think it's called. It's a bit dry, but it's a fantastic book that covers that stuff ad nauseum. You want to go ahead and announce it now?
Yeah, I think now's a good time because we're going to run several of them, and we want to make sure we have enough time to do it.
I forgot all about that.
Oh, I know. Well, but you made a good segue for it. We are actually, since a lot of this is sort of dealt with in the CKG, or you can use it for that, we're going to give away 3 PDFs of the CKG and 1 print copy. And so Chuck has been setting this giveaway up for us. He's in here. He's going to get it set up, and he can kind of tell us exactly what we need to do. I think it's just everybody's going to get an entry, and the raffle's going to last about 5 minutes. We'll give away 1 PDF, and we'll do another PDF, and another PDF, and then finally the print of this little Castle Keeper's Guide. So stick around, and then just check the text stream chat over here while Steve is talking, and I'll show you how to enter, and then we'll go from there. Also, the newsletter's a link in there for the book of Chalking Out the Feudal Society. So if you didn't get that, I can throw the link up here if you guys are interested in buying that book.
Yeah, Blue Materia. Yeah, I read it some years ago. It really is. It's a little slow, but it is a fantastic book, and it really will kind of it'll open your eyes to how feudalism actually worked, because it's not portrayed really well in TV or what have you. Now, I did mention actually that TV show. Tim, I don't know if you've watched this. I know you've watched a little bit of the Vikings, but The Last Kingdom. It's on Netflix. I think they just wrapped third season a few months back. They actually touch on, not really feudalism, but a limited monarchy really, really well. And when you watch the television show, what's really cool about it, especially for us, it's basically about this one character and his 2 or 3 friends who are driven out of their home. He's the son of a baron, son of a lord, really. And they're on an adventure. They really just go on this 3 seasons of adventures. And as he kind of builds a name for himself, he ends up as one of Alfred's right-hand men. But they fight constantly. Alfred doesn't like him. King Alfred doesn't like him. And this main character doesn't like King Alfred. So it's really cool. And it really is like a D&D adventure minus wizardry and whatnot. Uhtred is the main character. That really good TV show. First season was kind of off, I thought. Couldn't get into it too much. But by late first season and into the second season, it was fantastic. And third season was just through the roof good. So I strongly recommend that. And Vikings, a little bit different. It doesn't kind of go into what we're talking about today, but Vikings is a really good television show. There's is that what's his name's book? Mark Bloch's book.
Yeah.
That's an exceptional book, and it's not very long. I mean, it's not huge. It's just a little bit dense. So when are we going to do some of the giveaways? Do we not? I'm fixing to dive into tip number 3.
Yeah, go ahead and dive into that and just take your usual good time about it.
My rambling time about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of back to tip 2 a little bit, but so a limited monarchy is what I try to do, or some type of feudalism. I've done that pretty extensively in Aird. I think every country in Aird is a feudal country. Maybe the Hobgoblins. There's probably a few. Maybe the Dwarf Kingdoms would be autocratic monarchies. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Autocratic monarchies. Autocracies. Maybe that's it. Someone actually said that earlier, I think. So with all of that, with a limited form of government, which actually empowers the players a little bit, and gives them a better standing in the culture and society that you're developing, that leads us into kind of the third trick of the trade: softening up the nobles. Absolute monarchy. That's what I was looking for. That was it. Not autocratic. Absolute monarchy. Thank you, Blue. That's what I was telling you. It's the simplest word when we think of it. Yes, an absolute monarchy. So there's not a lot of those in the West. Now, in the East, there's a lot of absolute monarchies, but there's not a lot in the West, and they don't last long. I believe it's Louis XIV. I don't think the English ever had an absolute monarchy. Maybe. I don't believe they did. Maybe under Longshanks, but the French did, but it didn't. It did not last more than 3 generations. And then Napoleon and that crew of the Terror and those knuckleheads came in and took care of all that. I guess I shouldn't talk about the French revolutionaries as knuckleheads, but they started executing so many people. They got angry. They got really angry really fast. All right, so anyway, going with a limited form of monarchy, not an absolute form of monarchy, you can treat your nobles a little bit differently. When the nobles aren't themselves totalitarians, they've got limitations, which means you can go kind of anywhere with their personalities, and that's what I started doing some years ago. I made nobles. I gave them a greater sense of humor. I gave them just this kind of less of a sense of superiority and arrogance and all this other stuff. And that immediately kind of ratcheted things down and allowed those players who grew up in the West to actually interact with them a little bit better. Frequently, the nobles will see characters when they come in, because they really don't know what traditions and forms that this particular nobility may or may not have. Now, when they come in and fail to do them, they're really just seen as provincials. The queen or the duke or whoever it is, or the seneschal, the nobles, the court, they don't necessarily, punish them or ridicule them. These are just provincials who have come in and they don't really know how to behave. And you can see this, I mentioned this in the tricks of the trade, you can see this almost anywhere in today's world. You can walk into an auto shop, and if you don't know what you're talking about, people still treat with you. They don't, run you out of the shop. They might take advantage of you a little bit, but they may not. I mean, so there's just an absolute ton of examples of one group treating another group, decently, but because they're very, very different and they don't understand the language that each other is speaking. So try to soften your nobles somewhat. Make them a little bit more relatable. Give them senses of humor. Just kind of bridge that gap between what's clearly going to be someone angry because they may have to bow, or someone sitting higher than they are, or speaks over them, or worse, and this is the absolute hardest thing to do when you're running a noble, is to tell a character what to do. You don't get to Gandalf it up and say, I'm not going to do this, Theoden King. This is the king. When the king tells you to do something, even in a limited monarchy, you kind of have to do it. And that's tough. It goes back into what I'd mentioned earlier. Many, many people in the West they just have trouble with that. We don't like government telling us what to do, even when we know government is everywhere. The idea of it. Because now I may be putting words into people's mouth. I don't like government telling me what to do. So perhaps it's just me, but I suspect it's not. One of the funniest things I've ever seen. And we've got people at my table that are politically on the left and on the right. Everybody, we all get along. It's all great. But I was running a game in the Darkenfold Forest. This game I've been running since 2006. I was running a game in the Darkenfold, and the characters were on the eastern side of the forest, and they kind of left the western side of the forest open for a little bit. Well, when they went back, I had set up a scenario where Petersburg, this town that's north of the town of Innsmeat, had actually come down, and they had rebuilt the bridge, built part of a road, and they had set up a toll booth. They had to pay for this stuff. Now, the reason they had done this, of course, is to increase trade between Innsmeat and their own town. But as soon as all of those characters, everyone, bar none, at that table discovered that someone had come to their part of the woods and set up a toll booth, which is essentially a tax, they were furious. And then in the game, what unfolded within absolute minutes was what we call the Stonemasons' War, because it was the stonemasons that were kind of behind it for obvious reasons. They're laying stone for the roads and building stone on the bridges. They're looking for a market. The characters went to war with the town of Petersburg almost immediately on the sheer idea that a tax had been placed on them that they didn't agree with. And that's that. And like I said, left, right, they both have the same instinctive reaction. Government has come down here where government doesn't belong, so let's react to it. So I think we all kind of have it here in the West, and it's just easier to get over that if your nobles, that once your characters interact with them, if your nobles are a little bit more approachable. So try to do that. Try to just soften the nobles up and give them a sense of humor. Allow them to kind of interact with everybody without the whole mess. Is this Jennifer joining us?
Yeah.
Hey, Jennifer, how's it going? Hadn't seen you since GaryCon.
So while we got a second here, the raffle is now working. We had a little bit of a hiccup. It's working. The first one is going through. So type in raffle, RAFFLE, in the screen chat, and you'll be entered to win. It's going to go fast because we're gonna try to get all of them in if we can today.
Hey, I just remembered you're seeing things.
I was wondering. I can't see it, so I just sort of figured that you were just like fast, Red.
No, I set them all up. They're all. So every week, Tim does these. He wants to do what are they, scenes? Is that what, or transition? Is that what it's called?
Sources on to show it,
To what I'm talking about. So basically, kind of a little placard that goes up while I'm talking about whichever trick of the trade it is. I'm supposed to put up. Every week he does these, and every single week I forget to put them in. Well, I got them all in. They're all set up, and I forgot to use them. So maybe next time I'll remember to use them. I got number 3 is up. You know, I can recap. I can do a recap if you want, and just put them all up real quick.
No need. I think we're good. And you know, it's really just trying to get this to where, you know, future generations, when they get to watch these things and expound on how you did things, we want them to be able to see that it was nice.
Yeah, because they're going to look at it and go, man, that guy was an idiot. he couldn't even turn on and off a button, because that's really all it is.
I guess we'll get there. We're still new at this.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things to remember really fast. You know, all of a sudden it starts, and then you've got to be on. You got to talk, and it's difficult to keep everything going.
It is, and you know me, I start to drone on, and there it goes.
I know.
You've heard it before, probably. You'll probably hear it again this afternoon. Whatever rolls across my desk.
Yeah.
I should take a moment and mention before we get into Trick of the Trade number 4. This is Amazing Adventures May. So Amazing Adventures May. So what we do in May is we really kind of focus on Amazing Adventures, which is a game that basically Jason Bay wrote, and it uses the Siege engine, the same mechanic that drives Castles and Crusades, for a multi-genre RPG. So we give so much love and attention to Castles and Crusades and some of the other games that we do. Amazing Adventures, of course, Victorious, and then there's other ones that have kind of gone on Printed Tainted Lands and Starseed, just kind of fall by the wayside. We remember them once in a while, especially when Jason rattles my cage and says, hey, so we have set, and this was Jason's idea, we have set May aside for Amazing Adventures. So what's cool about Amazing Adventures is this, I'm hoping tomorrow, but it may be as late as Monday, Jason has rewritten a supplement for Amazing Adventures, and it's Star Siege. So that game went out of print years ago. It was the first Siege engine game that we did, but it didn't utilize the Siege engine enough, so I let it go out of print, and we haven't done anything with it. But Jason's been working on it to bring it back out up to speed with the Siege engine, and it's now going to be supplemental to the Amazing Adventures. Since Amazing Adventures is really multi-genre, Star Siege fits beautifully in there. He turned the text over to me. It's cleaned. It's ready for layout. I'm hoping to get to that actually after we finish up here. So maybe by tomorrow we'll have a new Star Siege to release. And I think that we're just going to give it away for free. I think that's the plan.
Very cool.
Yeah, you and I have to kind of hash that out, but I believe that's where we are.
If we can do that, yeah, we'll talk about it. I just put up a link there. We still have the 3 digital bundle for sale for $9.99. That gets you all the 3 core PDF books for Amazing Adventures: the core, the manual monsters, and the companion. I don't know how long we're running that, but probably just through Friday.
Yeah, I think it's got an adventure in there. It's got Rise of the Red God, doesn't it?
I'm sorry, yes. It's also got Rise of the Red God. So basically, you're getting everything for the price of just a little bit over 1 adventure.
And you know what's kind of cool about that Red God? Now, Jason and I are working on a project that I'm not going to talk much about now, but what's kind of interesting about the Red God, we kind of created this villain separately from one another. If you follow the early history on my end of it, he was the Red Duke. He was Thorax, called the Red Duke, and he evolved as my writing changed, as the story changed, into Orandul, the Red God. And simultaneously on Jason's end, he was doing villains for Amazing Adventures, and one of his main villains was the Red God. So the two kind of product lines, in this very nice way, overlap one another in this villain called the Red God. Which is, as just a little bit of a teaser, something we're working on for the future. Maybe later this year, probably early next year. All right, so Amazing Adventures May. Dive in if you haven't. Check the game out at least. Go check the product out. Really, really good stuff. Lots of fun. So, tip number 4. What do we got here? Oh, yeah, so you softened your nobles up, or you're going to soften your nobles up with what have you. The next thing I do to help keep things from going south, to keep characters from warring with the Duke or the King or whoever their overlord is I put a generous helping of NPCs in and around the noble figure. It doesn't matter what rank he is, from a knight to a baron, it doesn't matter, whatever he is. I put NPCs around, and I use these NPCs to deflect the characters or any rage the characters may be building up towards this overlord who may be commanding them to do something or ordering them this way or that. The NPC basically becomes the foil for the overlord. The overlord, when I'm role playing it out, I don't have the overlord come down like a bag of hammers if the characters go too far one way or the other, but I have the NPC do. That way, and then later the overlord may intercede between the two. That way, your main NPC, the overlord, who's probably going to have a continuous role in your game, kind of is shielded from Todd, one of the guys at my table, is always making lists of people he's going to kill, NPCs that piss him off. So if you can keep him off of that list so that every time that character or that player interacts with the NPC, he doesn't get angry, then it's just better. And that other NPC whom they may hate or they can direct their anger to, you can kill off or have banished or keep there to be kind of a foil for their anger. It just helps. The more NPCs you have kind of hanging around the overlord, the better it is. And it doesn't have to be, it can be the Seneschal, it can be a brother of the overlord, it can be anybody. It can be anything that has a little bit of authority that helps push this whole thing on and toward the characters. So the last bit, and this kind of plays into both, it plays into really anything that you're doing as you set up the interactions between the overlords, the nobles, and the player characters. It's best to keep the obligations light. I remember way back when I think Todd's character had become the Baron of Istal, and I sat down and was that for me? What was that? Number 5. Yes. Lord of mercy. There. Okay, so that can be our signal. Next time when you do that, I'll know what you're talking about. I don't know what. I initially thought we got 5 minutes left. I thought the stream was open. I was confused. My very small brain kind of rolled over a little bit there. Okay, so what I had done at this barony of Istal is I sat down for 3 or 4 days and I worked out all of these obligations. I worked out how much, there's like 4 villages and how much the villages would produce and how much wealth it would produce and what various villagers had to give Todd, and then what Todd had, his character Luther, had to actually give his overlord, who was a duke, and if there were any obligations that went beyond to the king and that. I had all this stuff worked out. And we played it some. It did okay, but it became horribly... clearly not enough Dr. Pepper Googleplex, that is for sure. It became horribly complex, and it became frustrating, and then we played it, but it became this thing where this is what we did for like 45 minutes to an hour of the game. Everyone else would sit there as Todd had to figure out, or I had to figure out, and it became too much. So over time, I kind of set that aside, and I make obligations very, very simple now. All the way down to, in fact, Todd's character again in this new game was awarded some land in the kingdom of Augsburg, I think. And I told him, he said, well, how are we going to do this? Okay, basically it's a wash. Your land here has a few villages on it, and it's going to produce enough to pay for the soldiers that you have to supply to the king. So there you are. We'll just leave it be, and if later you want to go there, that's fine. If later I want to use it as an adventurer, that's fine. But for now, you're now just a minor lord in the kingdom of Augsburg. And then we drop it, and that was it. And that way, and I don't think it's popped up again, but later when they go adventuring in that part of the world, I'll have this, small little tract of land that Todd can play on, that we can use as a foil, create adventures around, do all kinds of stuff without it being too much of an obligation weighted down. This serves that's the first thing that serves. The second thing that serves is it again keeps the player from interacting too much inside a feudal environment in which they're just not, trained to do or culturally attuned to do, because none of us are. Nobody in the West. I can't think of a single place I can't think of a place on earth that feudalism still exists. There may be some warlords somewhere, maybe, but yeah. So, and certainly nowhere in the West. Just history books at this point. So making the obligations simple and keeping them light will actually not only give you fodder later for adventures, but it'll give you another foil against the players making war on the various nobles that they may serve. So that's the fifth tip there. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, open it up to some questions. Since we're having a little bit of trouble, so we may not get through all the raffles today, but we will carry those over into the next tricks of the trade.
Okay.
With anything else that we do. Yeah, feel free. We'll banter here for a few minutes. If you've got any questions on nobility or just the general tricks of the trade, then we can try and get those out to maybe he can get an answer for you.
That'd be good. So, DM Catalyst, I feel as if you are familiar with this industry. Who is DM Catalyst said, I really wish I was more familiar with y'all, although to be fair, I'm pretty new to this industry. Right, Troll Lord? LOL.
Yeah, he may be a friend of Chuck's, but it may be somebody that we don't know. That's the whole thing. Again, we didn't know that Smoke Filter was Jen. I won't use the rest of the name, but that everybody can be anonymous or as known as they want to on the internet.
That is true. Both good and bad, I suppose. Though I really do wonder, with the amount of information out there now, if it's even possible for someone to track it. I mean, I guess it is.
Right, I gotta check one thing here.
Let's see, I just proofread and small-time edit in the industry. Oh, proofread and small-time editing, so they're not in huge goods. Bifford, well, that's cool, though. Let me tell you, TLG's had its long fair share of editing issues, so editors are crazy important. And it's actually, this stuff, RPG material is very difficult to edit. People don't realize it. It's not like a fiction book. There's so many kind of nuances when you're editing it. It's tougher than people realize, especially when you get into monster stat blocks and challenge levels. And I think they're DCs in Dungeons & Dragons. I can't remember. But yeah, it gets all kinds of difficult. Let's see, Blue Materia. Have you ever had adventurers perform quests for nobles in lieu of taxes, a reversal of scutage in a sense? Yeah, absolutely. I actually like doing that, and that's one of the reasons that I have a lot of noble interactions with the nobility, because it gives me as a CK, a GM, it gives me so many more opportunities to do things for the characters and to have them go off and do things for all of these other NPCs. And then that goes on to build bridges with these NPCs that can just allow you to do larger themes, larger campaigns, more epic stuff, because then you're in the higher levels. Yeah, I actually really like that. And again, that kind of plays in, that's a good point too, because it plays into keeping it simple. You don't really have to worry about all of the, obligations that come with vassalage. You've already met your obligation because you've done this. You slew the giant of wherever. That's a great idea. It's a great way to do it. I see DM Catalyst, friend of Chuck's, mutual affiliation. I'm unfortunately not familiar with y'all at all. However, I hope that changes in the future. I have no experience with Castles and Snakes either, but I've heard great things. I look forward to getting into it and incorporating it into my shows. DM, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. I think once you get a hold of the game, you'll find out it's very, very simple, and it's very it's built to allow you to kind of mold the game to how you want to play. Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition is a great game, so is 4th and 3rd, and then there's Sword and Wizardry and Dungeon Crawl Classics. There's just a whole mountain of RPGs out there, but CNC specifically gives you a lot of control over how that game's going to play, how the mechanics play at your table. It's really nice. Let's see, John says, you want to read this one, Tim?
Yes, I do. I late to this topic, but I think that a lot of the time GMs fall into the trap of thinking they need to make a noble a high-level class trick. Really, most might be a 0 level or at the most have some minor training in a common class, i.e. fighter. Their power comes in who they know, who they can influence, what resources they can bring to bear against you or for the PCs, and the multitude of unseen nuances that take place behind the scenes that players might never directly know about.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliantly said. That and John's spot on. A king doesn't have to be a 14th level fighter. Those 14th level fighters are special people who are, whatever, who go out and do the adventures. Kings may not do that. They may know how to fight, but they don't necessarily, especially if they're younger, they don't necessarily have to be higher level or something like that. And I think that is something that's very easy for GMs to kind of slip into. You just kind of assume, well, he's a duke, he got here through X, so he has to be this. And it's just not the case. Some dukes, duchesses, queens all became, earned their rank very young. And then, hell, Louis XIV, who became the first absolute monarch in France, he was very young when he became king. So, yeah, absolutely. I think it's absolutely great point. And something you should really just bring into your game as much as you can, because that also, kind of going back to trick of the trade number 3, where you're kind of softening the nobles. If you make the noble actually physically, as in class level, less than the players, then the players themselves feel a little bit more empowered, and they don't get as defensive. You're not going to get as angry as a player at someone who's younger than you, and through the whole role playing situation, who's clearly not as skilled as you. It kind of helps. It helps defray that quite a bit. It's a great point. All right, so what did I think Bifford says? Bifford says, I've got the player's handbook in Dead Tree and A1 in Dead Tree, plus a number of PDFs. I have backed a good number of TLG's Kickstarters the past year or so, but can't do printed because postage is totally prohibitive. But also do far too many deals, which annoys me because I like to buy them, LOL. Yeah, we do like to do deals. There's no doubt about that. And the print cost the shipping cost, I probably complain about this every other day. It's just gotten ridiculous. I think it's almost $30 to ship something to Canada now. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's just a drive.
Yeah, it's just Canada, for God's sake. And I know that we ship stuff to England all the time, so they can fit a container of books on there. Can't be that expensive. But I want to know why it's gone up so much in the last. I'd have to ask Todd when it really shifted. It may be up to 10 years ago, but it used to be very affordable to ship to the European Union and to Canada. And then it was like night and day. Suddenly the rates just went up, and they've been consistently creeping up ever since. And we can't keep up with them. They'll creep up, and if we don't catch it, then it's not, in our store, we're not charging what the post office is charging us, and it's just a mess.
Hey, that reminded me of something that we could talk about for just a second while we're doing the last. We're going to do the print book, I think. Scott was just on with me, Helen. We were talking about layered PDF. Have you been looking at those at all, Steve?
No, I have not, but I'm instantly interested.
Yeah, basically, it's just like a layered PDF. So if we get the layers going, we can have the background disappear. We can have the map, basically, if you just turn the layer on, then you can have it sort of like it's blowing up if you're clicking on it in HTML. He sent me a copy. I'm going to show it to Peter, and we're going to make Peter's life a living hell.
Well, now, yeah, that might actually fall off of Peter's desk. Trying to get really to where Peter's focusing on art. He's such a brilliant artist, and I keep throwing layout jobs at him. And I know he likes to do layout, but I really want him to do more art. But, yeah, I was actually just messing with a layered PDF for Rollsworth on the Monsters and Treasures just yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know in Photoshop how to turn things on and off, but you can do it online, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That's at least what I understand from what he's saying, yeah.
I would really, really like to see our PDFs kind of evolve into something even more functional. Really, the functionality for a PDF now is word searching for me, because you can, like, if you have the Codex Verd, it's a huge book, so if you need to find Orndor, you can do a word search and find what you're looking for. But beyond that, it doesn't bring much to the table for me, much more than the print copy does. But there seems to me that there's so much potential with a PDF, especially if we could link things, like if you're playing in A1 and here's the map of the region, you can click on a part of that and it takes you to that section in the adventure. I think that would be cool. Or even from book to book would be really cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Layered PDFs, absolutely. standard for you. Yes, I know. We would love to discuss doing it. It's something that I've always been interested in, making all these things easier. Plus, we always have some people who want it in black and white, or have trouble reading, or for printing purposes. It would make all that much easier.
Yeah, no, and really, I think at the end of the day, if we can just make this stuff, I don't know, more functional and quick, because part of the joy of Castles and Crusades. Now, I know some of the other games get this as well, but part of the joy of CNC is its rapidity at the table. I mean, everything can go very, very fast. You can go slow if you want it to, but if you need to move through things quickly, then CNC is tailor-made for that. And PDFs, a more functional PDF would actually just enhance that even more, because then you're not looking for something, you can just go to it. I love the idea of that.
All right, hold on just a second. Let me ask Chuck. Chuck, are you there? Oh yeah, he's just about to shout out. We're going to do the print copy now.
Okay.
So we'll make that last, I think, 5 minutes. So if we can talk 5 minutes, which I'm sure we can do.
Sure, we can manage something.
Enter. We're going to be giving away a free print copy. There it is. Hardback print, open to all users. And so I think you just have to type raffle to enter.
Oh, okay. I see how that works. I wondered why everyone was typing raffle.
You just like to say things.
I thought they were just making fun of you. So.
Yeah, they are.
Well, DM, I tend to agree with your comment. I'm a book snob, really. I really don't even read paperbacks anymore. I read all hardbacks. I bought one yesterday. Gordon Ray's North to Anaheim: A History of Civil War, and I could have gotten the paperback for half the price of the hardback, but I got the hardback anyways because I'm a bit of a book snob. I like books. I'm not gonna like to move when I move.
I know. I think we talked about that last week. I'm going to be out of town. Conveniently. But that does remind me. I actually sent you a book yesterday.
Oh, did you?
No, I did. I haven't sent you a book in a long time.
It's been a long time. I do remember that stack of books you got me. I've still got them somewhere.
Do you really?
Oh yeah. Well, the one you got me, Bartlett's
Quotation.
Book of Quote, whatever it is, one of my favorite books. I absolutely love that book, and it's still sitting on my shelves in there.
Yeah, I actually got rid of most of my books. I think when my dad had so many, and I just got tired of moving all the time, and I went digital pretty much. But I do keep my reference books. They're just good to have.
Yeah. It's good to have the information at your fingertips. The internet's good, but it comes with so much crap. Just so many things keep popping up.
Yeah, just like this.
Yeah.
Not to belittle us, but
yeah. Yeah, John. Yeah, layered PDFs on the maps would be great too. You're right, because then you could click stuff on and off. I like this idea. We really need to open it up.
Yeah. Well, there's a copy in Dropbox that Talon shared with me, and so I think it's just a matter of building and designing it, and then seeing what we can do to make it happen.
Sounds good.
So, yeah, there's that, and getting these things to work on phones and other things as well, because so many people like to take those sort of things to. Melkor's got a big question. You want to read it?
I'll let you read it while apparently I stopped.
All right, Stephen. Quick non-GM tip related question, but GM tip nonetheless. In looking at a halfling and an orc in Monsters and Treasures, both have one hit dice D8 and therefore attack with the same bonus. In my mind, orcs are going to be a bit more ferocious the way I want to run them. What would you do to differentiate the two in game to make them a bit different other than different ACs?
If you wanted to make orcs a little bit tougher, yeah, obviously the AC is the easiest way to go. I'd probably just give it a bonus 1. Essentially that you're giving it a 2-hit dice roll out. One of the things and I don't know that this would apply here, but one of the things I've started using a lot lately is damage reduction. The game I'm running, they're like 13th level now, and the amount of damage they're dealing to my monsters is extraordinary. So I'm just slipping damage reduction into a lot of them. So that's something that you could do. That might actually work for the orc to make it a little tougher. And you can, I mean, obviously orcs have a 15 armor class without armor on, or 13 I think it is. So they're tough creatures to begin with, and you can easily build that into their mythos that they just, when you hit them, it just doesn't hurt as bad, or they heal, just a little bit faster. Damage reduction might be a good idea, but adding just a bonus 1 to it would kind of tip it over the halfling, definitely. I'm like you. I mean, if you get into the Monsters and Treasures of Erd, I created what's called the Hlobane orcs, and these are orcs that served Unclar during the Winter Dark, and they're ferocious. I think I made them. In fact, I'll look it up real quick, but I think they're 2 hit dice standard. And then there were different types of these Hlobane orcs that gave them even more abilities and whatnot, because I like the idea of an orc being stout and not just... Yeah, I gave it 2d10, actually. The Hlobane orc has 2d10. But AC becomes the easiest. Double its hit dice. Or even if you don't want them to have too many hit points, then just give it a bonus 1 to hit, and that way they don't get top-heavy on the hit points side. That way players can kill them faster, or as fast, but they can hit a little bit better than the standard orc. I would probably go with just a bonus 1.
Alright, so...
Yeah, hold on just a second. Yeah, damage reduction is fantastic. It's absolutely changed. It's made the game a lot more exhilarating for the players because they don't know what's coming on. A lot of these guys have memorized these monsters. They know all this stuff. But once damage reduction... And they don't even know it's damage reduction, but suddenly these monsters are absorbing more damage than the players are used to, and they don't know what's going on, and it's fantastic. All right, I'm sorry I interrupted you, Tim.
No, you're fine. You were actually talking about the good stuff. Oh, look, Bifford won.
Sweet!
So, what I was going to say to you is you had a nice segue. And really, you're the face of the company. You're the pretty face of the company. You get to talk about this stuff. My job is to sell books. I'm trying to get people to buy stuff. And so, you said damage, and it made me remember that you and I were talking about our damaged books.
Oh, yes!
Now, we have a category in the store, and I'm going to put it up there right there. And a lot of this stuff is 50% off, 60% off. There's even some Edgar Rice Burroughs chronologies, which I don't think we've ever really done the regular set in damage. We must have got a few that got back some damage on.
Well, what I ended up doing, these books get damaged mostly, I would say 80% of the ones that end up damaged are damaged when we get them. But we've been with Wellsworth Printing for so many years that I never bother them with it. And there's going to be some kind of built-in damage percentage anyways. So we just take them and set them to the side. Sometimes, however, they get damaged if we drop them in the mailroom or whatever. And if the book hits the floor on its corner, then it immediately goes to the damage pile. And I was just in it. I don't know what I was doing in there. I think I was putting together some of the Dungeons of Elftrack. And I just happened to look up, and we got 4 shelves of damaged books, which is way too many. It's just too many shelves. It's too much. That needs to be weeded out. So, yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that. Now the Burroughs stuff, I kind of took a damaged volume 1 and a damaged volume 4 and put it with it. Just to kind of. We didn't have like a damaged set, but we had enough to make damaged sets of all of the volumes.
Okay. But yeah, I think it's 175 in the damaged section for that copy, and it's normally 250. So it's a good deal, and I think we have 4 left. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and then there's 2 damaged leathers of the ERBs. There's some other damage. There's some damaged leather hallowed oracle, I think. But go to the damage page and check it out. It's deep discounts, slightly dinked.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, hey, DM Catalyst, that's fancy.
So now, is that something we did or something?
I've been trying to follow this. That's something he did. We didn't set those up. That might be his own or some other sub emote that he has himself. Again, I was telling somebody that you and I are we understand this a little bit. Chuck knows a lot more about it, so we're still trying to get our feet wet with all of Twitch.
Yeah. It's a learning curve, but we're getting there, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's remembering a whole new. It's the interesting thing about the internet. It's a whole new language. You know, words have sprung up. We got to figure out what cheer bits and whatever, blah, blah, and then remember it.
Yeah, sub emotes. And that reminds me, guys, if you're a sub here, I have yet to send you out your rewards and your coupons and all that stuff. If we have it on there, that will be on my list to finish before Sunday. So basically, if you're tier 1, you get a 10%. Tier 2, you get a 15% off. And tier 3, you get 20% off Discord, account in the store. So really, if you go to the damage section, they're already marked down. So then, if you're a sub, you could get an extra 10% off just by using your discount code.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so DM is saying those are cheer bits.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So we could make a cheer bit, I guess, and then we'd use it on someone else's channel, like Chuck's channel or DM Catalyst's channel.
Right.
Very cool.
Yeah. Anybody's channel that we want to try and do something with.
I don't know how. Go ahead.
Sure. I was gonna say we can basically make we can make our own for people to use on our store as well, other than the bad ones.
Let's
see. Anyway, let me let's see. I've got one little thing here I've got to take care of. Anyway, I think we got our winners. I think we got as much as we're going to get to today.
Holy shit!
What?
There's 2 deer standing in my backyard. Both of them are does. That's just funny.
Are they there because you put the new grass in the back?
They're looking at me through the window. Well, I feed those birds like crazy. Oh, she's fixing it. She hears me. Oh no, one's a young buck. Look at that.
That's just crazy, man.
There you go. All right, just eat. I won't disturb you. All right. It's probably this creaky chair that spooked him. I got to get rid of this chair. DM, well, that sounds kind of cool. Peter Bradley's always done these. The horns that DM put up made me think of this. He's always making little jokes in our books that I frequently don't catch until after it's gone to the printer. And one is a horn. Some dude's blowing a horn. I think it's in the magical section of the Monsters book. Maybe we can turn that into a cheer bit. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know if it's probably too big, but who knows? Yep, that's a young buck.
Well, all right. You got anything else, Steve?
No, I think that's it. I think we covered all the tricks of the trade. Hope everybody's enjoying them. And I've already got next week's kind of lined down. It's going to kind of build on this one. And then we'll try to do this once a week is the plan, I think.
Yeah. And we'll finish up any kind of giveaways we didn't get it this week. It turns out a lot of people that were showing already have the PDF. So we'll have to come up with something clever or just get more people in.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's do both things.
Yes, I agree.
We can be clever.
We can be clever?
Maybe.
All right. So, yeah, we'll figure that out, and we'll try to come up with a few other things.
All right, well, that sounds good. That's all I've got. Thanks, everybody, for showing up for GM's Tricks of the Trade, and we'll be here next week. Spread the word. Let everybody know about the channel. We've got subs up, and then let them know about the mailing list, so they'll get the Tricks of the Trade when it comes rolling out.
Exactly, yeah. And if they want to find that, they can just find that basically anywhere. And actually, it's on here as well, down in the contact of this thing like that. So you should be able to find it.
I see Chuck and Epi are having a discussion about the Discord that we're not supposed to pitch yet, but we won't pitch it. So
yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
I basically have been trying to just throw it out there, but we'll have all of this settled in maybe 2030.
There you go. That's troll time right there.
All right, guys. Take care. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.